Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Techies. This is episode number 3. We are still in beta, and this week we will talk yet again about Pi. So hang around and join us. Hello, everyone. I'm Vance Willis, and today I'm joined, as I have been many times, by Mr. Mark Johnson. So, Mark, how are you today?
Hey, Vance, I'm great. And what fantastic new intro you have. And I think that is really upbeat. So, are you going to give us the story of where that came from, or is that a top secret?
Not a top secret at all. That was a purchase this week from Pond 5, some of our friends over at Pond 5, and it's After Effects. I'm playing around. Not only am I trying to learn Final Cut Pro, I just didn't think that was quite challenging enough, so I'm trying to simultaneously learn how to do After Effects. So it's certainly a challenge. I know you've been playing around with it as well. But that did come from our friends over at Pond 5. So hope everyone likes that. We'll have a few more coming in the coming weeks, but just playing around with them and trying them out. So this week, Mark, we are going to talk about Pi. The last couple of weeks we've been talking about the Raspberry Pi, correct? We've had that in the news, so we have been talking about Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, we have, and in fact, I must just quickly mention before I forget, we had an email from one of our viewers. This was Rene in Aachen in Germany, who has a MakerBot and some other of those 3D printers, and he's offered, Vance, that we can go out there when we want to print our cases. And he'll print them for us. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that, Rene. It would be fantastic if we could. If we ever find a reason to get over your way, we certainly will. So it's good to know that people are enjoying what we're doing, Vance.
I agree. I'm ready for a 3D printer. I know we've talked about that, but the your Raspberry Pi is on order, I believe. And yeah, if we can get us a case made, that would be really, really awesome. So I look forward to that. But so we are talking about Pi, but today is the math geekiest day of the year, which happens to be in the U.S. We do it a little backwards from you guys, and that is that the date is March the 14th, which is 3.14. So today is Pi Day. I think in 1988, someone came up with that craziness. So you can see that we're celebrating all of the geeky stuff of things like Pi. So there are a lot of parodies on Pi songs and that kind of stuff, but it is also Mr. Albert Einstein's birthday today. So Mark, have you and Mr. Einstein about the same IQ?
No, I wish that was true. I think the only thing I have in common with Mr. Einstein is that he wasn't particularly good at school.
Right, exactly. Yeah, me too. I have that. I have that as well.
He was a late poster, but I thought you'd bring it up because I am sure that Einstein is sort of a relative of yours, right? Relative?
No, not at all.
As opposed to relativity.
Oh,
okay, never mind. over his.
Well, it was almost disproven about a month ago. So yeah, I didn't catch. I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry. That was actually a terrible joke, but good try.
Yeah, but it was a terrible joke. Yeah, we could get onto the Bose-Higson and and all the stuff at CERN, but I think maybe that would be a little bit too much. But I think there is one Einstein joke that, or saying really, that I've always remembered, and that is, when he was trying to explain relativity, and he said, if you put your hand on a hot stove for a minute, it will feel like an hour. Sit next to a pretty girl for an hour, and it will feel like a minute. That's relativity.
And that is a great way to explain it. I've never heard that, but that's really good. That's really good.
So he would have been 133 today. So
that's correct.
Won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921 or something like 1920.
Right, exactly. So, I found it to be a little interesting that he died in 1955 in New Jersey. And he died, it says here he died peacefully in his sleep. By the request of his will, there was no funeral, no grave, no marker. His brain was donated to science, and his body was cremated and ashes spread in a river nearby. So, brilliant guy, excellent contributions to society. One of the absolute best minds, I think, in history. And at the end of it all, he just didn't want anything special. So no anything. It's but it's great. I was a little concerned when they thought they had disproved the relativity deal about a month ago, and they came back and said, "Oh no, we're sorry, we had some wires crossed, or we had
it was a calibration problem." Yeah, calibration problem or something. I think they said they came up with, but they all got very excited about it, and it did give them a lot of publicity. Not that they did it deliberately for publicity, I'm sure,
right?
But it was it certainly attracted a lot of attention, and the work going on at CERN is absolutely amazing, and the world hasn't ended yet because they. With the smashing of things together.
Exactly, and I'm really looking forward to that. Over there with the Super Collider, I'm following it loosely, following the Super Collider stuff. It's a lot closer to you, I guess. But that's some pretty cool stuff going on. So we'll keep our eyes on that.
You can follow, you can follow CERN on Twitter. I think it's probably just CERN, but
it is. Yeah, I think it's at CERN. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's well worth following.
So that's really neat. Well, look, this week also we're going to kind of buzz through some of this stuff quickly, but this week we're about in the middle. We're almost wrapping up the South by Southwest. I guess it's a gathering. They say it's a geek gathering down in Austin, Texas, close by where you used to live, right? You're not too far.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Austin for 4 years in the 90s, and it was a fantastic city. And I remember that I think they hold it at the conference center, and the conference center was actually built and opened while I was there. And a very good friend of mine who sadly passed away just after that was involved in managing the opening event, and we had VIP passes to the conference center, and we went along, and I think Willie Nelson was playing, and we were sitting sitting on a table, and Willie Nelson was like 6-10 feet away from us, and it was just excellent. It was just amazing event. Not sure if that was I think that was the opening ceremony, but it was around that time, and they had Austin City Limits.
Yes, Austin City Limits still going strong. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we went to see the recording of that several times. Anyway, that's an aside. But yeah, so Austin is a great city, and I can understand why geeks want to gather there. And there was also an announcement this week that Apple are increasing their number of people there. I think they're going to employ another 2,000 people there in the next 5 or 10 years.
Well, interesting that you bring that up, that last year the iPad 2 was released on day one of South by Southwest in Austin. That was big news last year. They had a pop-up. Apple set up a pop-up or inflatable type just a store, and sold out of the iPad 2 in just mere hours. Because as I understand it, and you may have gone to South by Southwest a number of times. Actually, I was going to go this year, and it didn't work out scheduling wise. But the first 5 days of the 10-day event is more techie related. So there are more folks that converge and try to find, they try to show their new ideas and their entrepreneurial spirit and everything. So the first 5 days are kind of a geek fest. And then the second 5 days, as I understand now, is about music. Just like you're saying, Willie Nelson, there are a lot of different musical acts that come in for the second half of the show. And I read an article earlier today that actually said it was funny to see the transition day between when the geeks were leaving with the computer bags and the messenger bags and all of their geeky stuff, and the rock and roll and country guys were coming in through the elevator. So you would actually have some going down the elevator and the rock and roll folks, with the guitars and the, all the instruments and everything going up the elevators. And it was just kind of they actually had one building, Mark, and you probably would know this building, but they had a building that they changed the large marquee sign on the outside of the building. It was on one of the prominent corners, and they changed it from a techie gathering. It was some kind of grill, techie grill type thing, and they changed it over to a music grill, like overnight. So I think the city kind of just does a switch in personality, if you will. From the geek side over to the music side. Now, for me, I'm both a geek and I love music, so I would fit right in. I would just stay the whole entire 10 days and just hang out and have a good time. But one of the things that was there that's become somewhat controversial here in the States was that a guy came up with an idea that, hey, everybody needs internet access. And when you get to these conventions and events, a lot of times you get into an overcrowding situation with cell towers. You have large gatherings of people, either in Vegas or in large cities. In New York City, it happens a lot. And the cell towers just get to be overpowered some. And, it may be good to have Sprint or Verizon or AT&T or any of the, the different providers, but sometimes the one that you have may not be good. So a guy came up with an idea that's become very controversial. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that for just a second and just see what your thoughts were. But so the story is that they found some homeless folks, and it was not a lot of them. I want to say it was like 50. Oh no, I'm sorry, 14 people. So not very many, 14 people. They found these folks that didn't have a job, maybe needed some income, and gave them a shirt with their name on it, and also a 4G hotspot charged up, ready to go, and allowed people to connect to that hotspot, which obviously it would cost some money, but they would pay these folks a minimum of $50 a day. And
right.
And one of the entrepreneurs said that it's a experiment. Like modernized version of street newspapers, homeless selling street newspapers. Now, it's become very controversial. I've heard a lot of different two sides of the story. This is inhumane. This is treating the folks that are down on their luck, badly, and we should be, giving them a helping hand to lift them up instead of making them, maybe look bad. I don't know that I understand that, but I threw this story in because it is such a hot topic in the last day and a half here in the States, and didn't know if it came across the wires to you guys across the pond, and just kind of want to see what your thoughts were. I mean, how do you feel about 14 folks that didn't have a job a couple of days ago and now making $50 a day?
Well, first of all, I hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it in pre-shows or 30 minutes ago. I guess I don't know what the difference is between if they had wanted people to, be bouncers on the doors, and they had gone and hired 14 people and paid them $50 a day, and maybe is the amount so small? Is that sort of even less than minimum wage or something? I don't know, but if they wanted 14 people on the doors, would that have been controversial? I mean, it's okay. It's not a full-time job, but it seems to me as long as they wanted to do it and they volunteered to do it and they were offering a service, it might mean that next year some other guys get to do it.
Right. Well, I mean, back to, they wouldn't have a minimum, they may or may not have a minimum wage job. I don't know. But my take on it was that $50 is better than $0. And
Right.
and it would be something that could possibly build, even some self-esteem, and allow the folks to say, hey, I can do this. Is a pretty simple job. But give me a T-shirt and a electronic device, and I can go out and make some money. I mean, it would seem better to me than maybe some manual labor, like masons, or something that requires a lot of physical labor, because they may not be physically able to do very heavy lifting, but certainly putting on a T-shirt and dropping something in a front pocket, or back pocket or something, seemed to be pretty simple to me. But I don't know. It stirred a big rise here in the U.S. and it was just an odd thing. So wanted to.
So what was the technology? Do you know? Was it it was just creating a wireless Wi-Fi
right?
network?
It's just a cellular 4G hotspot, very similar to just
it's a MiFi.
Exactly, a 4G MiFi charged up, that's hitting the towers. Right. So I guess the kicker would be that they would, since it's only 14, I mean, obviously Austin, in the downtown area, 14 would probably cover a pretty good area, that if you did have AT&T and this was a Sprint, or maybe, homeless person number 7 may have an AT&T one and the other one have a Sprint one and another one have a T-Mobile, that, you may be able to hop between them and have some good access. Now, you and I will be going to the National Association of Broadcasters here in about a month, and we'll be using a similar technology that actually takes multiple 4G, 3G modems and connects together and sends some high-quality video over the internet. So something similar to that. It's just that if your hotspot connection or your cellular connection is not good, or just say you have a laptop. And you don't have a tethering application or a way to tether it to your cell phone, or you have a Wi-Fi only iPad. You could connect to the person with the T-shirt on, and boom, you've got internet access instead of having to go to the local library or coffee shop. So anyway,
they're offering a service. It'd be interesting to see what happens. I will have a look and read both sides and see what they have to say.
Right. Well, it's kind of a battle, but I think it'll all die out. It's just, the last couple of days it's been somewhat heated. So another thing we saw this week in the news is about connected cars. Now, what do you think about connecting the cars to the internet? Now, we've seen a lot of stuff about Google having self-driving cars. There were even some reports of people calling, emergency services, 911 here in the States, and saying, "Hey, there's a car beside of me and no one's driving it." I don't know if you've heard those stories, but Google actually have self-driving cars, and obviously around San Francisco and the Bay Area, but they also have been in rural areas to where the cars are actually driving themselves. So, internet connected cars. What's your thought on that? Would you do you have navigation in your automobile? Do you have connected things in your car?
Yeah. Well, I actually just recently bought a TomTom Live. I'm not sure if they're available in the US, but what it is it actually has not normal GPS map navigation, but I think what it has in it is a 3G SIM card, because you can do Google searches on, for restaurants and things like that. It downloads, traffic congestion, and if there is an accident ahead, it'll download the information, tell you where it is, and reroute you, etc. So we're starting to get that. So that is sort of interesting. But to me, I think it is the connectivity to be able to access my music that I had at home, if I could do that, or being able to listen to podcasts. I'm not sure that the connectivity, and obviously it'd be good to have connectivity with voice control to do some limited communications. I do think that anything you do in the car does take away your focus from the road, but to have passengers be able to do things. And there's also the safety and security. I mean, Rolls-Royce here in the UK make jet engines, okay? They make some very impressive jet engines. They actually monitor all their jet engines, 24/7. I'm not sure what sort of connection there is from the plane, but they will do things like, you know, so, you know, phone up their base in Hong Kong and saying there's a flight coming in from Washington, you know, flight, 123, and you need to replace the, you know, XYZ connector and on the thingy bobby,
right?
You know, when it lands, because they are doing predictive analysis of the engines in flight, and that means that when the plane gets there, you know, they're ready to fix it, and then there is either no downtime or minimum downtime. Otherwise, what happens is they go and inspect the planes, you know, and look, and they find the problem. They then have to order the part. So some of this real-time analysis, you know, and I don't know whether, you know, Ford or, you know, General Motors could actually do it, but it would be good to be able to, you know, get some of that data, even if, you know, maybe you can just get it yourself. Maybe you can, you know, go onto a website and you can see your economy. You can see how the car's being driven. That, you know, when you lent it to your 18-year-old son, you know, he drove at, you know, 80 miles an hour down the road or whatever. So there's some good things, and it will happen. I mean, everything will be connected, right?
Sure. So we saw this article from Juniper Research that says 100 million connected cars just in, you know, 3.5 or 4 years by 2016. Now, you know, this is obviously, you know, they show a Toyota logo here in the top, but apps like connecting to Bing, you know, iHeartRadio for listening to internet-connected, you know, internet music, Pandora music,
right.
You know, movie tickets and tables. You know, is there an open table at the local restaurant or pub or whatever? You know, obviously a lot of screens. I've, you know, even seen some retrofits of iPads going into cars that you know, that didn't have them. Now, obviously, like you said, there would be some distractions there, but you know, 100 million, especially if they're coming out of the factory, that's a lot of vehicles that'll be connected. I think that it's just a natural progression, and I think that you know, this is kind of a you know, a duh fact that we know that this is going to happen. But, you know, found it interesting to see that there will be a number of vehicles that will have that coming in the future. Now, 4 years ago, I bought my wife's car, and it was one of the most connected vehicles that I could find anywhere around, just because, you know, you and I are tech geeks.
Right.
Navigation with a big screen, voice activation of a lot of stuff. Now, you know, Ford and General Motors, this actually was an Acura, so Honda Motor Companies made it, but just had the most techie stuff inside. It looked like like an airplane cockpit on the end. Now it's somewhat dated, and it's about time for another vehicle for her. But you know, she's really enjoyed that. It's got you know, computer controlled you know, suspension ride, and you know, and a lot of stuff that is connected. The navigation obviously does not get real-time updated like it would, say, with Google Maps or Bing Maps or something like that. Still have to put in the DVD, but you know, we get one each year, and you know, but having a connected car, I think would be good. I think it would help folks out. You know, we're away from the time. I don't know if you saw yesterday, I believe it was, that Encyclopedia Britannica shut down their printing presses. So we're away from phone books for looking up our friends and relatives in phone books now that used to be very thick in large cities.
Yeah.
We're away from encyclopedias that we grew up, and as I grew up, one of the highlights of my childhood was that my grandfather was a PhD. He was a doctor, and he would actually read to me the encyclopedia. And that's very odd. I mean, you just wouldn't think about that, but that's what he would do, was just as a pastime, he would actually read the encyclopedia to me. Those days, you know, of pulling a book off of the shelf are about gone. You don't have that. You don't have maps.
Yeah.
You don't spread maps out.
Which is a shame.
It
Yeah.
is a little bit of a shame,
shame.
but you know, let's think about it. How distracting would a map be? You know, if we took a map and we spread it out in front of us, you know, in an automobile, that's pretty distracting as well. So, you know, those things are, you know, those things are kind of the past. You know, payphones. We drove by one the other day and we said, boy, that'll be a relic. You know, you won't see payphones very much anymore. But connected cars,
very much.
I think connected cars are, you know, are something that's going to be coming in the very, very, very near future.
Well, I think it was last week. I mean, Ford have made a big thing, haven't they, with Ford Sync? I think it's called in the US, and they've been advertising on some other video podcasts, etc. And so I went about a year ago. I went into the Ford garage here and said, I understand that the new Ford, whatever it was. I've forgotten which model it was. The Ford Fiesta is now is a global model. It's the same everywhere.
Right.
So I'd like it with Ford Sync, please. And that bit wasn't global.
It was
so
not.
And the guy hadn't even heard of it. The salesman hadn't heard of it, and then just tried to sell me a car anyway, as a salesman would do. But they weren't very successful. But either last week or in the last couple of weeks, Ford have announced the European arrival of the B-Max. And the B-Max, the Ford B-Max, and this is going to be the first car in Europe with Ford Sync sometime in 2012. So we're starting to get some of that technology over here. But internet connectivity I think is great. But I'm also interested in electric powered vehicles, and there are sort of subsidies over here to buy them, but they're still pretty expensive.
Yes, they are. The Chevy Volt over here is having some problems selling. There's been a lot of tax credits and that kind of stuff, but they're just not selling very many of them. I think they're just a little too early still. They've got battery issues. They not quite ready for prime time, I don't believe. Charging stations, obviously, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to charge up for 8 to 10 hours and be able to drive for 2. If it's supplemental, that's fine. But the way they're trying to sell it here is, it's green. But they also don't sell that, we have to manufacture the batteries, and the batteries could be caustic or toxic on the stuff that's inside the batteries. We have to dispose of the batteries. You have to pay for the batteries to be disposed. And the car is very, very heavy because of all of the batteries that's in the car. So, it's I think it's certainly going to come. I want to see the hydrogen fuel cell. That's what I want to see. Absolutely. I want to see us just leapfrog over the battery stuff, because batteries are very inefficient. They always have been very inefficient. They're inefficient in almost every device they're used in. They're inefficient. Charge them a lot, and you don't get any more back than what you put into them, and they're always decreasing. Now, obviously, you can add some energy back to the batteries, by braking and engines to crank up and put some charge circuit to it. But they're just not a very, very efficient technology. Hydrogen fuel cell, I like a lot. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, battery technology hasn't really come on. I mean, there have been some, lithium ion and some of the polymer stuff is making a difference. But as you say, it is not necessarily that green to manufacture this stuff. But I agree. But charging 8 or 10 hours. But I don't mind charging overnight when I'm asleep.
Right.
And if you live in a city, and you're doing short journeys, it absolutely makes sense. If you're, out here where we are, a little bit of the countryside,
right?
It is fine. For most, most of my journeys are probably 20 miles or less.
Well, I tell you what, you just segued us into the next segment by talking about electricity. But then we'll also talk about short transportation in just a few minutes later on in the show as well. But electric Thunderbolt. So electricity, here's a lightning bolt coming from the sky. Intel, we've been waiting on this for a while, you and I. Thunderbolt, we've heard we're on the Mac side on a lot of stuff. And we've heard, this is just going to be the biggest, no story. But it looks like that Intel is now going to be shipping the optical cables for the Thunderbolt interface. Now, we're both pretty excited about this because we do have Thunderbolt ports on our Macs, and we like that 10 gigabit bidirectional data rate. We just won't be able to use it for any power, right? They're not going to be doing any. I don't think there's any voltage that travels down it.
But here's a question: what do you use your Thunderbolt interface for?
Well, I don't for anything now. But what we want to do is have bidirectional video communication or daisy chain multiple things together with one cable. That's what we want to do. What do we do with it now? Nothing. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole laugh. Is it going to become something?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's it's a bit like having a car that you could drive at 200 miles an hour only if you could get the right bits to put in it or something. I don't know. But I actually ordered yesterday my first Thunderbolt device. So I ordered the Intensity Extreme, the little a device from Blackmagic that allows you to connect HDMI or component or whatever video to a Thunderbolt interface. And I've been waiting to play with one, and I haven't been able to get my hands on one. So I've just gone ahead and ordered one. And that I've actually used another Thunderbolt device, and I have to say it was incredibly impressive. So I think it is coming. Now, if you remember back, Thunderbolt used to be called Light Peak because it was designed as an optical interface. And because they couldn't make it work, so rumor has it, they came out with the copper wire version and renamed it to Thunderbolt because they couldn't call it Light Peak if it was going down a copper, could they? So that was announced about a year ago by Apple on the Macs, and it's now on all of the Macs except for the Mac Pro. I think we touched on that in last week's show. But this is one of the differences, and we get on something to talk about Windows versus Mac. So Mac has Thunderbolt, and devices are just starting to ship, and we're going to get even faster Thunderbolt and over longer distances, which is probably more important because 10 gigabits is bidirectionally is pretty impressive. But you'll be able to run. Is it 6 feet at the moment? It's something like that, 6 or 8 feet at the moment. It's not very far with special cables, which people complain about the cost of, but they do have some circuitry in each end.
So I was going to ask you bought the device. Did you buy the cable? Because I'm sure the device didn't come with the cable because the cables are expensive. Did you buy the cable?
I've already got the cable.
That's right. You do have the cable. So
I bought the cable before. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did the same thing. I bought the cable in hopes that I would have something to connect it to. I just plug it in and just look at the end of it, going, "This will be really neat when I can plug it into something." So it is somewhat disappointing that we don't have a whole myriad of devices. I really believe that we'll see the first large batch of production units next month at the National Association of Broadcasters of NAB. I think we will see a number of things coming out, and I think they will be a faster than trickle coming out. And there's really not a lot of technology that comes out super fast. So
look at USB 3. Look at USB 3. USB 3, I mean, Apple have implemented. It's been implemented by a lot of the PC manufacturers, not all of them. But how many USB 3 devices are there? There aren't. I don't think there are that many. So people say that Thunderbolt has been a failure, but it's still young and devices are coming to market. But USB 3, I think, hasn't been a great success in many ways. And one of the things that I struggle with, I think that you do as well, is actually moving large amounts of data. Gigabit Ethernet networks are all well and good, but if you have a file, and we are now dealing with files that are 50 or 60 gigabytes on the video side, sometimes even bigger. I mean, I was recording some uncompressed video today and doing some tests in the studio, and it's 8.5 gigabytes per minute. All right. So, you work out, even if you just do 10-minute shots, it's nearly 100 gigabytes of uncompressed video. And you try copying that over a gigabit Ethernet. You can go for a walk, go and have lunch or whatever, and it might be done. So what you need to be able to do is to move it, on I was recording on SSDs, so be able to plug the SSD into the machine. So my target machine is a Mac Pro. So Mac Pro doesn't have eSATA because Apple never did eSATA. So the fastest interface on it is FireWire 800. And so I bought a Freecom, external eSATA bay, plugged it in there, and it's transferring at about 2 gigabits per minute, which is faster than the Ethernet.
Sure. But
not, it's still, you could have a 100 gig file, it's still 50 minutes. So I'm looking forward to being able to get a FireWire interface in a FireWire dock, and I don't think anybody has announced a dock yet, have they?
Not yet, not yet. But we did talk about last week the non-release of the Mac Pro, which we were kind of hoping that we would see a new Mac Pro that would have a straight shot into the PCI, which would be a Thunderbolt. Obviously, like you said, the eSATA is not on there. But there's a lot of rumors. We had a discussion, I guess, about a week ago about MacBook Pro. Your MacBook Pro, which obviously is laptop. We were discussing a second ago the Mac Pro, the Tower, but the MacBook Pro is due to refresh. You have one generation before the most recent one, I believe, right? So you don't have the Thunderbolt.
Yeah. This is a non-Thunderbolt.
Non-Thunderbolt, right? So
and it is. It's I don't know. It's probably 3 years old now, and it's a great machine.
Great machine. So mine is about 4.5 years old. My MacBook Pro, but my MacBook Airs are just before the Thunderbolt as well. Well, the refresh is coming on the MacBook Pro, and there's some rumors about it possibly being called a MacBook Pro Air. You think they're going to do anything with making the Pro into a thinner computer, or do you think you think they're going to keep it thick like the one you just held up? What do you think on that?
I don't know. I think Apple are into design, and they want to be pushing the curve. I mean, that's a way that they have kept ahead of a lot of the industry, and how they, have got their shares up to some ridiculous number. It closed out yesterday, $565. Unbelievable. It was $500 only, a couple of weeks back, right?
It actually has been forecast yesterday at $738 because of the LTE integration with the iPads and the newer iPhone release. 700 plus. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, so but they are great on design and technology. There are some things that we don't like and other people don't like about them. But I haven't bought a MacBook Air. I know I got the opportunity to use yours for a while, and it is great. But there are. I'm not sure everybody wants smaller and lighter. You want a nice screen size. You do want the ability to have more than have USB and interfaces. So I think what does the MacBook Air have now? It hardly has any connections on it, doesn't it?
No, actually not. Doesn't really have hardly any connections. It's wireless. It does not have Cat 5. It's got 2 USB ports. MagSafe connector. No drive unit at all. So it's very, very thin. Obviously,
the new one has Thunderbolt, though. Yeah,
the new one does have Thunderbolt. That's correct. The new one does have Thunderbolt. That's right.
So if you had a hub, you could have a Thunderbolt hub.
You could
that had Ethernet connector, HDMI in and out. He says hopefully.
Right.
There could be all sorts of things on that hub.
So
which would make interesting.
Right. And so our discussion about upgrading, both of us have 2 or 3, 4-year-old MacBook Pros, was on the refresh. We see that they're thinking about not only slimming them down, possibly, which we don't know. That's kind of a rumor. Do they make a MacBook Air Pro or a MacBook Pro Air? Or do they keep it thick like the one you've got and increase the number of inputs on it to Thunderbolt? And, do they keep dedicated graphics cards, or do they go to an integrated one like my Air has? It has integrated graphics cards built in. They want, like you said, design. They want to keep it sleek and thin, but 15-inch MacBook Airs, rumors coming out on that in the last couple of days. But, I think I'm like you. I believe I would like to have, a 15-inch MacBook Pro with Thunderbolt and with as many ports as we could get, with a decent graphic card, an i7, either the, latest and greatest processor with a lot of RAM and SSD, and give us kind of a powerhouse in a 15-inch. And yeah, I certainly use my Air a lot. I love it. It's very, very light, about just like carrying a notebook, or a little bit heavier than the iPad. But for heavy computing, it's a little tough to do.
Right, so deliveries at the Vance Willis establishment, I suspect, by the sound. I think you're right, but I mean, what I look for in the MacBook Pro, I mean, the new MacBook Pros already have Thunderbolt, etc. Is, to me, this MacBook Pro is a workhorse. I take this away, I use it for video editing. It might not be the fastest for it, but it does, all the video editing I want without too much problem, and it's just solid. I like the backlit keyboard, etc., etc. And I think that I would have to be convinced that a 15-inch MacBook Air format, would be strong enough. But they got good guys, so we'll wait and see. But I think you can rest assured they're not going to bring out anything that has less performance than the current model. So all this talk about, are they going to use integrated graphics or whatever? I mean, it's a bit like our discussion the other week about speeds and feeds. It's irrelevant. It is, is it responsive? Is it, and they're going to make it more responsive and faster. They're not going to make it slower.
Right. I agree completely. Well, so it's not Christmas, Mark, but one of the things that I know that you have your eyes on is the Parrot drone. Yeah.
Now, I am sort of, lusting after this bit of tech. We thought we should, talk about bits of tech on the show that either we just like and we use, or we're looking forward to. And this is one that I am looking forward to. The first drone was released, I think, at CES last year, and this one was released, this is version 2.0, or version 2, was released at CES this year. And in the UK, at least, it ships in May. And I have pre-ordered one from Amazon and looking forward to it arriving. And the reason that I'm looking forward to it is that it has 720p video on board. And I think you were saying the other week when we were chatting, Vance, that it'll now record, and then you can offload it. So you don't just have to record, because it will stream it back. You guide it with an iPhone or an iPad, and you can see on that screen, I think, the video. It has two cameras from sort of the navigation camera, but I think it now has a second camera for 720p, or is it the same camera?
I'm not sure if it is or not. I actually pre-ordered one as well. Pre-order was available about 3 weeks ago here for shipping in April. So there's a possibility.
Well, I'll have time to cancel mine then.
Right, exactly. Right. I can play around with mine, and then you can see if you like it or not. Or when I see you in the middle of April, I may bring it and we can play with it when we get together. But 720p camera, yes. It's also got an auto stabilize feature. One of the complaints I think I heard on one was that as long as you were paying attention and you flew it, it was fine, but it would get kind of crazy on you if you're not careful. This one, I believe, if you stop any of the controls, it has an auto leveling type feature to where it'll just kind of hover by itself, so it doesn't crash
hands
into
off.
Hands off type. Right, exactly, right. So it's something that kind of corrects itself. And I don't know if any of these videos. In fact, I don't even know if I so that's a little, so he's just flying it around with the, with the iPhone, and that you see he's got his finger on it. Now he releases his finger, and it rights itself, or it kind of levels out as he releases his finger, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully with the guards around it, which I think you fly for the first, little while that you fly it. And I obviously I have the audio down on this, but you can take those foam guards off, and you can fly it with just the blades flying around that would chop into anything that they hit. So anyway, that's kind of one of the big wants. That's a geek want toy there that I think both of us have been looking at, and looks like that's going to be. I actually have some business reasons for wanting one though as well. Well, that's my justification anyway.
And in fact, I was out looking at a particular site with a friend of mine recently, and we wanted some aerial shots of it. And I don't know if
Sure.
you, I suspect it's the same thing in the US. You get a helicopter in to take aerial shots. It is not cheap, I can tell you. So even though the price over here is 50% more than in the US, being ripped off again, it is, it's still pretty reasonable. So I'm really looking forward to that, and we will report back and even show some video when we get them of what we think of it. I think it just looks. I used to fly radio controlled planes and helicopters, so I am really looking forward to this.
Yeah, so here's another. They show it flying over the city and showing video, and I agree completely. If you want to take some take some shots on pretty much anything from higher than say a ladder or a normal 6 or 8 foot tall reach that you could do. 720p is certainly good video. So kind of some interesting stuff there on the drone. Hopefully I won't crash it into a wall. The first. Now look, that's kind of interesting. Now see, they showed there's the augmented reality that you were talking about, Mark, with the camera, kind of a heads up, seeing what it sees, augmented reality, so you can get in all of these fights with your buddies. So maybe when we get 2 of them, we can fly. There you go. There's some video showing back in real time. So anyway, yeah, that's one of the things we look forward to coming up pretty quickly. So we were talking about moving around, getting around in small towns and cities in tight areas. And electric cars, there's a lot of smart cars. Cars are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Sometimes you see folks get out of cars and it looks like they're bigger than the automobile. And so we found this week from a company that I have got something going on here with my computer. I don't know what's going on. I'm not able to actually show you that. I don't know why I'm not, but I'm not.
This is a probably it's better for getting a bit of exercise. I think this is the thing that you were showing me. This was the bicycle, was it? There is a bicycle from, I think it's Persia, that has a special slot that allows you to be able to drop. Yeah, there we are, to drop your laptop into it and cycle off. So. Right. I mean, it says with the tech geek in mind, but does it do anything else apart from just have that slot?
I think that's it. I think it's just efficient travel. So it's one step above or below the electric car, but you put an iPad or something in there and commute. Messenger bag strapped to the back, that kind of stuff. So lightweight materials. It's just kind of caught my eye as something. I don't know. I don't know if it folds up or not, but. It obviously has the tech geek in mind, it says. So a lot of times we look at kind of fun gadgets and neat stuff, and I saw that and I said, hey, if you got a short run, throw your laptop in it instead of holding it under your arm and crashing into an old lady or something crossing the street with a bag, then maybe that would be a good thing. So.
And it probably means that when you fall off, at least your laptop will be all right, even if you get battered and bruised.
It does look like it's pretty well protected. You're right. It's got good protection around the computer. So this week also, Mark, we you helped as well, but we released the Techies website at thetechies.com. So we wanted to kind of show everyone that it is available. At the Techies, have a couple of videos. The weekly shows will be up, and have some links back to some of our other shows. And wanted everyone to follow us. That'll be on the YouTube channel, the Blip channel, both at ttfn.tv. We'll have some links at TechAg. We're still doing Studio Tech live on Fridays, and we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up in the next couple of months
Yeah.
and years. So
Yeah, there is a lot of exciting stuff. So the new website is probably in I would say in again also in beta. The show is in beta, as we say, or beta, and so is the website. But www.thetechies.com, and we'll update everything there, and more information will be added to that over time. As Vance actually mentioned earlier, we will be going to the National Association of Broadcasters show in Las Vegas in next month next month in April, and we will be doing some live streaming from that event as well as producing a lot of other shows that will be loaded up on studiotech.tv, which is the site that Vance and I where we put all our shows, which is about how you make web video, internet video, and all about cameras and studio equipment. And we have a lot of fun over there. That's just one of the things that keeps us busy. So check if you're interested in making videos for the internet. Check studiotech.tv out. Otherwise, you can follow me on Twitter at TTFNTV. So I've enjoyed it, Vance. Thank you very much. It is. I'm really enjoying a show where we can be a lot more general and talk about lots of different things rather than just focus ourselves. It's nice going off at a tangent.
Exactly, I agree completely, and it is great to be able just to pick things out from the PC world, the Mac world, even current event relative to news items, some speculation. Kind of some guessing. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. It's interesting to do that kind of stuff, and also to even list some toys and some gadgets and stuff. So that's a lot of fun. We will try to record this on a weekly basis. We've been doing Wednesdays and trying to get it out by the weekends, and so we would encourage anyone that has any ideas to let us know. We'd be glad to cover that stuff, and Mark, I appreciate you hanging in and joining, and we'll be doing some more stuff here very, very soon, and I guess we'll be back at it again in a couple of days.
We will indeed. I've enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
All right, you guys have a great day, and we will see you very, very soon. And the Techies signing off, episode 3.